21 years ago this week on April 30th, 2000. You know, WWE is calling Backlash this year WrestleMania Backlash. This show here in 2000, this was the real WrestleMania Backlash. This show is what WrestleMania should have been. Dean Malenko, the ladies' man, beat Scotty 2 Hotty to retain his light heavyweight title. Hell of a finish, with Malenko hitting a super DDT off the top for the win. Big Show came out for his match with Kurt Angle to Hulk Hogan's Real American theme, dressed as the Showster Dude. Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit had an excellent battle for the Intercontinental title until the lame DQ finish. And in the main event, The Rock defeated Triple H to win the WWE Championship. Shane McMahon was the guest referee. Vince McMahon did everything he could to screw Rock out of the match until Stone Cold Steve Austin finally showed up. He was supposed to be in The Rock's corner, but he did not show until very late, largely because they didn't want him distracting from the match and just standing around doing nothing. So they concocted some kind of storyline where Vince McMahon and all of his corporate cronies were talking like Austin wouldn't be there, like they had done something to him, but eventually he showed up. But also keep in mind that Austin at this point was only 3 months removed from spinal fusion surgery, so he couldn't take any bumps. He should not have been out there at all. And when he finally walked out, I remember all the fat Austin jokes that people were making because he looked heavy. Which made sense because, of course, he couldn't train, so of course he looked heavy. But he obliterated everyone with a chair. Triple H, Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe, Shane, Vince. You get a chair shot. You get a chair shot. Everybody gets a chair shot. From the moment that glass shattered to the moment the referee counted 3, just this period of probably 3 or 4 minutes, the crowd would not stop making noise. It was the longest sustained reaction I had ever heard up to that point. Just pure pandemonium from start to finish. 15 years ago this week, on the May 1st, 2006 episode of Monday Night Raw, Joey Styles cut his famous worked shoot promo quitting his job as the lead announcer on Raw. Now, back in October of 2005, Jim Ross got kicked in the balls by Linda McMahon on TV, and he was fired. He was storyline fired as the play-by-play announcer. This was because JR was having major colon surgery, which, of course, is what led to the embarrassing Dr. Heine skit. Anyway, that left a void open at the announce desk for WWE to fill, and Joey Styles, the voice of ECW, was tapped to be their replacement for Jim Ross to fill that void. And things seemed to be going fine until WrestleMania 22 rolled around, when Styles got bumped from the show in favor of Jim Ross. Although they did at least allow Joey to help call the hardcore match with Edge and Mick Foley, which was probably the best match on the entire show. So he got to call his first and only WrestleMania match. But then he was replaced again by JR on the Backlash pay-per-view. This was the one where Vince and Shane wrestled Shawn Michaels and God. Which is too bad, because it would have been the perfect place to hear a classic Joey Styles, "Oh my God!" I can't believe we missed out on that. On this night, on Raw, the Spirit Squad were the general managers of the show, and Kenny Dykstra was scheduled to challenge John Cena for the WWE Championship. And the Spirit Squad took to bullying Joey and telling him he needed to show some more spirit, especially when it came time to announce Kenny as the new champion, and if he didn't, they threatened to force him to wear a cheerleader outfit on Raw the following Monday. Now, this was in the back that this segment happened. Styles then walks back down to the ring, and Jerry Lawler is egging him on, and he's telling him, "Come on, Joey, show some more spirit." And Styles looked like he was about to explode. He just wanted to sit down, call wrestling, and do his job. And Lawler said, "Come on, Joey, show some more spirit." And again, Styles just looked to be getting angrier and angrier. Just ask JBL what happens when you make Joey mad. Finally, Joey had enough. He calls Lawler a hack. He starts shoving him. Lawler is laughing. He seems to be fine with it until Joey slaps him in the face. And then Lawler's entire demeanor changes. He shoves Styles backwards. He falls over the announce chair. And Joey marches to the back. They cut to commercial. They come back from break, and they replay the entire incident. And Lawler is standing at the announce desk, and he apologizes on the house mic. He apologizes for his actions. He tells Joey, come on back out. Styles walks out onto the stage with a mic in his hand, and he cuts one of the more memorable promos in Raw history. One that hits a little too close to home with the things that he was saying. This is what he had to say. He said, you want to apologize like nothing happened, like you didn't knock me on my ass in front of millions of people worldwide, and I'm going to come down there and work with you? I'm not coming back. And now, thanks to the magic of live television, I'm going to show the whole world why for 7 years in ECW I was the unscripted, uncensored, loose cannon of commentary. 6 months ago, WWE called me. I didn't call this company because I was looking for a job. I didn't need a job. WWE called me because they had humiliated and fired, again, Jim Ross. So I get JR's spot, and from week one, week after week, I've got an ongoing lecture about the differences in professional wrestling and sports entertainment. I'm not allowed to say pro wrestling. I'm not allowed to say wrestler. I have to say sports entertainment and refer to the wrestlers as superstars. I'm told to deliberately ignore the moves and the holds during the matches so that I can tell stories. Well, ignoring the moves and holds is damn insulting to the athletes, to the wrestlers, not the entertainers who leave their families 300 days a year to ply their craft in that ring. Here's the best part. Because I'm not a sports entertainment storyteller, I get pulled from WrestleMania. And the reason I'm given is because I don't sound like Jim Ross, who's the guy they fired in the first place. That makes sense, right? So I swallow that bitter pill. I'm a company guy. I got bumped from WrestleMania, but then I get bumped from Backlash. I'm not good enough to call Backlash? In ECW, I called live pay-per-views on my own, solo, no color commentators dragging me down. Wasn't done before me, hasn't been done since. But I'm not good enough to call Backlash because I'm not a sports entertainment storyteller? Well, you know what? I am sick of sports entertainment. I am sick of male cheerleaders. I am sick of boogers and bathroom humor and semen. And I am out of context, people would wonder what the hell's that about. But he goes, I am sick of our chairman who likes to talk about his own semen. He mocks God. He mocks God. And makes out with the divas, all to feed his own insatiable ego. I am sick of sports entertainment, and most of all, I am sick of you fans who actually buy into this crap. This sports entertainment circus. I never needed this job, and I don't want this job anymore. I quit. A lot of truth in that promo, which is really one of the ingredients of a great promo. And as he tried to collect himself, Lawler said they brought Joey Styles up from the gutter and maybe he'd feel more at home in a bingo hall kissing Paul Heyman's ass. And so ended the run of Joey Styles on Monday Night Raw, which cleared the way for them to use him for the ECW revival the following month when he joined Taz on commentary for the debut of that show on Sci-Fi. 13 years ago this week, on the May 1st, 2008 episode of TNA Impact, class was in session with Professor Steiner, Scott Steiner, and his famous Steiner Math promo as he talked about the upcoming triple threat match at the Sacrifice pay-per-view with himself, Kurt Angle, and Samoa Joe, or as he used to call him, Smo Joe. Angle would end up being replaced before the match by Kazarian due to injury. This may have been the greatest gift that Scott Steiner has ever given to the wrestling business. This promo right here may well be his greatest contribution. Lauren Thompson was in the back with Steiner, Petey Williams, and Raka Khan to conduct this legendary interview that I shall read to you verbatim. If you found the Pythagorean theorem difficult in school, this may be hard to follow, but try to follow along. You know, they say all men are created equal. But you look at me and you look at Samoa Joe and you can see that statement is not true. See, normally if you go one-on-one with another wrestler, you got a 50-50 chance of winning. But I'm a genetic freak, and I'm not normal. So you got a 25% at best at beating me. And then you add Kurt Angle to the mix, your chances of winning drastic go down. See, the three-way at Sacrifice, you got a 33 1/3 chance of winning. But I got a 66 2/3 chance of winning, because Kurt Angle knows he can't beat me. And he's not even going to try. So, Samoa Joe, you take your 33 1/3 chance minus my 25% chance, and you got an 8 1/3 chance of winning at Sacrifice. But then you take my 75% chance of winning. If we was to go one-on-one and then add 66 2/3%, I got a 141 2/3 chance of winning at Sacrifice. See, Joe, the numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you at Sacrifice. And with that, the field of mathematics was forever changed. He then went on to ask the ladies if they would rather be with him or with Samoa Joe. And Lauren said she thought Joe was kind of nice. And he said, see, you're one of those girls that likes romance. I'm gonna talk to all my freaks out there. Would you rather come home to me, a genetic freak, to be satisfied every night, or go home to that fat-ass Samoa Joe? Scott Steiner, man. He is truly a gift. 9 years ago this week, on April 29th, 2012, two of my picks for WWE Match of the Year took place on the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, with Brock Lesnar wrestling his first match in a WWE ring in more than 8 years, taking on John Cena in the main event, their first meeting since 2003, and Sheamus defending the World Heavyweight title in a 2 out of 3 falls match against Daniel Bryan. This is what their WrestleMania match should have been. Those two had an excellent battle. Both matches were on my list at year's end, but it was really neck and neck between the Cena-Lesnar match and the Shield's in-ring debut at TLC in Brooklyn for Match of the Year that year. Cena and Lesnar was a main event that was very unlike what we were used to seeing in WWE at that time. That's one of the things I loved about it, was how different it was. It felt like a fight. It felt like a battle. Lesnar opened up Cena early with an elbow to the head. Cena bled. Brock just toyed with him. There was a spot where Lesnar, using the ring steps that had been brought into the ring, did this leap where he was just supposed to knock Cena off the apron to the floor, but his momentum carried him out over the top rope, and Lesnar almost broke his own neck on the landing and tore his knee out. Cena ended up hitting him with a chain. That busted Brock open hard way, and he gave Brock an attitude adjustment on the ring steps for the win. A baffling finish, even though it probably shouldn't have been, given the way Brock left the company. I guess this was the price that had to be paid. But this, like I said, felt like a fight. It was violent. It was bloody. It was brutal. And I loved every second of it, except for that finish. It's been almost a decade. I have not warmed to the finish. Brock Lesnar should not have lost his first match back in a WWE ring. But there was also controversy. After the match was over, Lesnar was said to be furious backstage about a few things. For one, when he went flying out of the ring, he blamed Cena for pulling the top rope down, causing him to fly out of the ring and almost blow out his knee. So he wasn't happy about that. But the other thing, the bigger thing, was the finish. And this comes per the Observer at the time. He was told that he was going to be protected because he would destroy Cena. He would lose, but he would destroy Cena. Cena would then have to be helped out of the ring to the back when the match was over, to sell the beating. Instead, if you remember, John Cena cut this bizarre promo. And some people said, well, maybe he didn't realize he was still on the air, because the show was still on the air. It was like, and Cena did this a lot, back then. If the show, let's say Monday Night Raw, went off the air, before the night was over and everybody was told to go home, Cena would get on the house mic and he would say something. He would cut a promo, he would say a few words, he would thank people for coming to the show, get home safe. Well, basically he did that speech, that kind of speech, but he did it on the air here at the end of this pay-per-view. And it was just very, very weird. And he was talking as if you might not see me for a while, I'm going to go away for a while. The way he was holding his arm, I don't know, maybe he thought his arm was fucked and he might have a legitimate injury, which he didn't. I don't know. I remember his arm sort of hanging there like it was dead, but he may have just been selling. But then he was back on TV the very next night. He never even went away. But Brock was pissed. And when Mark Carrano, the recently fired Mark Carrano, tried to calm him down, Lesnar reportedly told him to suck a specific part of his anatomy that I shall leave to your imagination. And 3 years ago this week, on April 27th, 2018, WWE kicked off its new 10-year partnership with the Saudi General Sports Authority for a series of events that is still ongoing to be held in Saudi Arabia. The first of which being the greatest Royal Rumble from Jeddah. John Cena beat Triple H in the opening match. The Undertaker beat Rusev in a casket match that was the original match. And then Rusev was replaced by Chris Jericho. And people thought it may have had to do with Rusev posting a tweet after the match was initially announced saying, "Bury me softly, brother," which he claims is not true. He didn't get in trouble for that. He wasn't, he only posted that, he says, because it was a casket match and people took it the wrong way. But then Jericho got pulled from the match and they switched it back to Rusev for what Rusev claims, and this is the reason Vince McMahon gave Jericho for the change, that the Saudi prince himself personally requested that Rusev be put back into the match. Yes. The same Saudi prince who allegedly loves having big names on his shows personally requested that Chris Jericho, a future Hall of Famer, be replaced by Rusev. Unless Saudi Arabia has some kind of beef with Bulgaria that I'm not aware of and he wanted to see Rusev get his ass handed to him, I'm going to have to call bullshit on that one. As does Jericho, who says the change just so happened to be made right after he told Vince McMahon that he was going to be working a second match for New Japan Pro Wrestling against Tetsuya Naito. Suddenly, Jericho found himself replaced by Rusev. And he was instead used in the greatest Royal Rumble match later on that night. He still worked the show. It wasn't like he was taken off the show completely. He just didn't work against The Undertaker, which is a match that he was looking forward to because Jericho and The Undertaker never really worked together all that much. I think they had one television match on SmackDown, if I remember. And they had that interaction in that one Elimination Chamber match when Jericho won the belt back. And I think that might have been it. But you know what? Who knows? Jericho doesn't buy that excuse. Rusev claims that that's what he was told, that they personally requested him be put back in the match. Rusev claims that he was even invited to dinner with the Prince. Maybe the Prince was a Rusev mark. You know what he's probably referring to. If you remember when all the wrestlers landed in Saudi Arabia, video leaked of this giant dinner where they were all being entertained. Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar, Undertaker were sitting at the head of the table with Vince McMahon. Shane and Triple H were on the other side. That's probably what he's referring. I mean, he makes it sound like he was personally invited to a one-on-one dinner with the Prince. Maybe he was. But I find that very hard to believe. And Braun Strowman won the 50-man greatest Royal Rumble match, a match that is most remembered for entrant number 39, Titus O'Neil, who tripped on his way down to the ring and slid underneath the ring in one of the funniest botches that I've ever seen. I've seen people trip and fall. I have never seen someone literally trip and slide under the ring. Corey Graves on commentary could barely contain himself. It wouldn't have been so funny if his head had struck the steel beam under the ring, which he only missed by a few inches if you watch it back. It was a steel beam right there. He just missed it, just narrowly missed it. But the only thing injured was Titus's ego. He will never live that down. He's part of history now. See, I would embrace it. I would just embrace it. When he goes, if he goes into the Hall of Fame one day, I know he just got the Warrior Award treatment, but if he were to ever get his own Hall of Fame induction, which I could see one day, if he stays with the company long enough, especially for all the PR work and charity work that he does. Although I guess that's what the Warrior Award thing was for, but, if he ever goes back in, they put a big video package together, that's going to be front and center. You have to embrace it. You made your mark. You will be remembered forever. You will live on now. You are immortalized in WWE history. I can think of worse things to be immortalized for. But that is this week in wrestling history.